Welcome to Mom's Writers Club. I am Jessica.
And I'm Sarah.
And I'm just going to get straight to it. Everyone, especially the women out there, stop being so freaking nice all the time. And this is not a rant about like people actually being nice. I am sick of us as women that we have to be nice all the time. We don't have to be nice. We can stand up for ourselves, and we should be standing up for ourselves.
Yes.
Sarah, your turn.
Please give us a like and subscribe so that this important video will reach more people. We have just both been picking up on a lot of things from a lot of different parts of our writing lives and our online lives and our in real life lives that has to do with setting boundaries and with knowing your value and advocating for yourself. And so much of it has to do with
it has to do with feeling that we always have to be nice and we always have to like make it okay and not hurt anyone's feelings, that we use like conditional words like, well, I just feel like, or, like, don't treat me that way. No, you don't get to talk to me that way. You don't get to treat me that way,
Yeah, because you know what? In writing and in publishing and in your creative life, your value is not your niceness. Okay? Your value is your creative output, is your book, and is your poem, and is your short story, or whatever you're creating. Like when you put that out into the world, that's the value. And the value comes from you and comes from your creative process, right? You are not going out into the world of publishing and living a creative life because you want like a niceness award, right?
Yeah. And we're not saying to be rude, like be a professional. This is coming because we have heard from many people how they are being mistreated or disrespected by somebody in their lives or in their career. And
or online.
Or online. And it comes down to people feel like they have to be nice. Like someone comes into your DMs and they compliment you, but it feels a little weird and it kind of makes you uncomfortable, but you don't want to be rude. So you're nice to them when actually maybe they're harassing you, and it's okay to call it what it is. Or right. What's another example? What's something else?
Well, you know what? And I want to pause right there because maybe they're not harassing you. You just don't like it.
Yeah.
You don't even have to decide what they're doing. The truth is in you. The truth isn't like out there somewhere where somebody's going to decide like, oh, you were not nice to this person and really they had all good intentions and everything. No. Like the truth is in how you feel and whether you're comfortable and whether you want to engage in this thing. And if you don't, that's all you need to know. You do not need to know the other person's intentions, right? If it feels weird and uncomfortable to you, then it's weird and uncomfortable, and you have every right to put yourself first and get the fuck out,
Pause. What, Emma? See what I'm dealing with. Not only is she interrupting, she's super fucking cute when she does it, so I can't.
I know. And she knows it.
She's still giggling to herself.
Okay, where were we?
We recently heard of a situation where an author had an agent and basically her book did not sell quickly. And I do not think most agents are like this, but as in any career field, there are going to be people who maybe do not behave as they should, as would be preferable. And basically her agent ghosted her after her book did not sell. I have heard of this happening multiple times, and every time the author feels as though it is their fault. They feel like they have done something wrong. They feel like they're harassing the agent when weeks later, when they still have not gotten a response to their initial email, or months later, they email them again.
And it's a real nice email, like, oh, I was just wondering if,
sorry to bother you, but
yeah.
So it's just very frustrating to hear about this. And it
made us both really sad. Yeah. I mean, this was like the agent behaving unprofessionally and the author feeling like it was all on them and it was their fault and they didn't want to be that pushy, like bitchy, squeaky wheel, that
and this went on and on. This was like
asking for stuff,
like 6 to 9 months that they and they finally expressed that they were upset, and the agent wrote back and was like, oh, we're so sorry, like something came up. And then the author felt guilty, and it's like a cycle, and it went
on for a long time.
Yeah. And this was actually an article we read, but I have also seen this happen with a writing friend.
Mhm.
And I just want to put it out there that if this is happening to you or has happened, it's not your fault. And you have the right to speak up for yourself, whether it's this specific situation with an agent or an editor you're working with. If you have an agent and it's an editor, maybe talk to your agent. But whatever the case is, like,
Or if you're working with a small press
yeah, you
and
can speak up and
things
you
are
don't,
feeling weird or
yeah, you don't
anything,
have
or
to
if you're
apologize.
looking into like an opportunity, like to be published in in a magazine or something, and something doesn't feel right about it, or somebody's not communicating clearly, it's really, really important that you advocate for yourself and that you understand your own value. So here's one thing that I've thought about when I've heard these stories, and we've heard multiple ones of them, where like an author is trying to communicate with their agent, or they're trying to communicate with somebody, their editor at a small press, and they're not hearing back for weeks or months at a time. Here's where my head goes, is that like there's something going on and it's going to wind up somewhere. And you are not doing yourself any favors by letting it drag on and on and on, right? I think people get into an agent relationship and feel very much like the power is with the agent. And there are many good reasons to feel that way. And it's
It's
not
hard to get an
untrue.
agent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is not untrue. They do have a lot of power, and they have a lot of kind of influence over, your hopes and dreams.
Yeah. Over your career.
So yeah, like you get in this relationship and it's kind of like you don't want to fuck it up, but it's going to wind up somewhere. And if you are getting frustrated that somebody is spending weeks or months replying to your emails, you saying something about it is probably not going to change the ultimate outcome. Does that make
Well, what
sense?
I kind of agree, but I do think you should say something about it because they
Well,
may
yeah.
not realize it's a problem.
No,
Like,
no, no.
have
That's
that
what I mean. Yeah.
conversation. Yeah. But if it's not changing, and we're kind of saying like if it takes weeks and months to hear back on emails, it could be anything. There are a number of things that could be causing that tension or causing frustration. That's like the one that we hear about most often. It is normal for agents to take a week or two to reply. And a lot of times we're not saying that like every time an agent does that they're misbehaving by any means, but we have specifically heard of cases where the agent has basically ghosted the author and only
Mhm.
replies when the author is like, hey, why are you not responding? I haven't heard from you in 4 months. I've emailed you
Right.
3 times. Like,
Well,
are you alive? you
yeah.
know?
I think, again, the thing here is that it's not about figuring out what the other person's intentions are, or
Mhm.
whether they're really busy or they've got something going on in their life, or like figuring out what it is so that you can be nice about it. Like, center yourself in this situation, and if it feels wrong to you, then it is okay to say so. Yes, be professional, and yes, be open to the idea that could be like something that's out of their control. But if it feels wrong to you, then it's wrong. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know how else to say that. We have such trouble believing ourselves and believing our own intuition and feeling and response to things. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, that must just be me being uptight or worried or anxious. And you know what? Okay, here, what do you call this? Not a vignette, anecdote. I did the thing that all authors do. It's so common that it wound up in Emily Henry's Book Lovers in like the first 20 pages, where this was she an editor or an
She's an
agent?
agent.
She's an agent, right? And she talks about that annual slowdown in publishing that occurs in August, which causes all authors to be like, oh my god, does my agent hate me? Do they want do they
I felt so acknowledged.
I did that. I 100% did that. I was like, summer was going by. I hadn't heard anything. I was like, it's been a couple months. Does she hate me? I literally wrote to my agent and I was like, I don't know. I haven't heard from her in a while. Like, I didn't say, does she hate me? But that's exactly what came
Do you mean
across.
your editor?
What did
Like
I
you hadn't
say?
heard from your editor? I think
Yeah,
you said
yeah.
agent.
Well,
Yeah.
I wrote to my agent
Hmm.
saying, I haven't heard from my editor in a while. Like, is that okay? Anyway,
Yeah.
um, and here's the thing, like, it's okay to do that. Like, that's kind of my agent's job, is to be like, yes, Sarah, it's okay. Everything's good. Don't worry, which is what she did. She replied to me
Yeah.
and she said, oh, I'm sorry you haven't, but, and she talked me off the ledge. And like, it's okay for me to
Yeah.
put that out there, to be like, I feel uncomfortable with this thing and I'm going to say something about it, you know?
Yeah, I find it's best to just say something and to try to resolve it, because otherwise it builds up and it gets bigger, and inside, like all that tension gets bigger than it actually might be. It might be nothing, but often, I mean, I don't want to say often, but like if you're feeling that way, you're feeling that way for a reason. You're not being
Yeah.
unreasonable. And I
Right.
feel like we as women especially have been almost trained to think that we are being unreasonable or overreacting, and we're not. So believe in yourself. That's what
Yeah.
I would say. And don't be afraid to speak up when something is bothering you, or hit block. If someone's harassing you,
Yes.
you can block them. Then they can't
That's the
contact you.
great beauty of social media, It's like, peace out, people. If it makes you feel weird, you are right. Just get out. You don't
Yeah.
have to be so fucking nice.
And let's make this bigger. So I have a
Yeah.
4-year-old daughter, and
Mm,
there's a great Instagram, which I of course can't think of right this moment, but it is like basically like powerful lines to teach your daughter. And everybody has their own. I'm not saying everybody should do the same thing here, but it's basically like teaching her to say no. And that makes me uncomfortable. And do not do that. Or like one thing we've taught her recently is do not talk to me like that, and do not touch me. And I try to teach her to like be kind and polite, but also there reaches a point, and she's had this experience on the playground with some little boys, where she needs to be aggressive and do
yeah.
not touch me, and teaching her to say it like that, and
So
let them know that
important.
she's serious. And of
Yeah.
course, I'm sure someone's going to be like, your daughter is overreacting or being rude. Good. I'm glad.
Right. And I have a almost 16-year-old daughter. And I gotta say, teenagers these days are fucking awesome. They're so fucking cool. I mean, I just cannot wait until they take over the world. But I really hope that I've been able to impart that over the years. The value is in you, the truth is in you. Like, you don't have to figure out what's going on out there and how to respond to it in a way that doesn't ruffle any feathers.
Ruffle some fucking feathers.
Ruffle some fucking feathers. They're just feathers. And I just think, like, things are going to wind up where they're going to wind up. And if you spend an extra 9 months like being nice and not wanting to be pushy and worrying about whether something, like, you're just wasting another 9 months of your life. If your agent's going to drop you, they're going to drop you. Might as well get it over with.
Can
I'm
we
going to
talk
put
about
that.
how we like originally described this with your ex-boyfriend?
Oh, yeah. What do you mean?
So Sarah did this really amazing thing when she was in her 20s, and feel free to cut this if
Accidentally.
she fell super hard for this guy, and things were great for a while, and then he kind of started ghosting her.
Right. And this was
And
before like cell phones and social
yeah,
media. So ghosting me meant like I would actually see him in person and he would act like I was practically a stranger, which is
yeah.
super weird.
And I think a lot of us have had this experience in
Oh,
dating. I
oh,
have. Yeah.
and just to preface that, like, he was all in too. Like, he was all like super romantic and all about how amazing I was. He asked me to
You are
fucking marry
amazing.
him. Did I tell you that part? And I
No.
was like, in the alley behind a pub. I was like,
Dodged a bullet, Sarah.
maybe that's like not a
Is he
good idea
drunk
right now.
too? Please
Oh,
tell
of
me he
course.
wasn't.
I'm sure.
Anyway, since I am telling Sarah's story,
Yeah.
she made that fucker break up with her, which I admire so much, because I know that like in my 20s, I had a relationship like this. And like I was in a really hard spot in my 20s. I didn't have many friends. I wasn't around family. I was living out in Washington all by myself. And I was like clinging because I didn't want that relationship to be over. And for a while, it had been so good. And, eventually we drifted apart, and eventually I did break up with him. But I like what Sarah did even more. She forced him to break up with her.
Because I didn't want to break up with him. I was like, clearly he wants to break up with me, And like we went over to his house and I was like, this is what's happening, right? Like do it. I don't know. It's
You're badass.
I'm making myself sound more clear and direct than I probably was, but I do remember thinking that. I do remember being like, this is your job, not
Yeah.
mine. And there was a power imbalance in that relationship. I mean, he was 8 years older than me when I was in my early 20s. And the same is kind of true in any relationship where there is a power dynamic.
Basically, you can see the same sort of thing happening in any business. Specifically, of course, we are talking about publishing. And if you are at the point where you need to end whatever relationship it is, whether it's an agent or you don't want to continue with a publisher, whatever the case is, like,
Or if you just need to challenge some behavior, or if you
yeah,
just need to
yeah, speak
challenge,
up.
if you just need to put your own needs out there, like I need you to respond to my emails within X time frame, or I
Yeah.
just don't know how to proceed. Like I need you to respond to my emails within 2 weeks, which is very reasonable in
Even in
any
publishing,
profession,
even in publishing.
even in publishing. And if they say, no, sorry, like I'll just get back to you when I get back to you, then like you may have some more information and you may actually be able to make a decision. But
Yeah,
if you go on and on trying to be nice and not trying to ruffle feathers, like it's I feel like the outcome's going to come out the same in the end. It's
I
just going to
agree.
take 5 times as long.
Let us know if you have any questions about this or like want us to talk about anything, any specific part of this. We are kind of doing this episode on the fly because it's something that we've been
Totally on the
talking a
fly.
lot about the last few days. Yeah, so it might
Yeah.
be a little disorganized, but we just kind of wanted to talk about it while it was fresh and while this heightened emotion was still around it because I don't know. I feel protective of my friends who have been affected this way by
I do
something in
too.
publishing. It makes me so mad. And it's so frustrating to me that they feel like it's their fault when they have done everything they were supposed to do. And just that they feel bad and that they feel like they're the problem and they're not. And then they feel their personal worth goes down, both as a person as an author. And that's bullshit because it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with the other person not being professional and
Mhm.
responsible and responsive.
Also, the other person probably not delivering on something that they promised, like on a functional author agent relationship, and they are not delivering on that promise. And I do feel protective of, like I am 52 years old. I feel protective of younger women. I've spent 25, 30 years of my life learning a lot of this stuff. And I have kind of reached the I don't give a fuck stage. And and that's a powerful stage. You have that to look forward to. But, I see young women going through this like, oh, I don't want to be bitchy. I don't want to seem
I don't want to be
too
needy.
pushy.
Mhm.
I want to be nice and I like don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to be that woman.
And it's at the consequence of them feeling less and letting other people walk on them. And anyway,
Hmm.
we're fucking sick of it.
That is the consequence of mistaking where the value is and mistaking whose side you're supposed to be on,
Be
right?
on your
You're
side.
supposed to be
We're on your side.
You are supposed to be on your side too, and the value is in you.
I think that's a great place to end. Did you have anything else you want to add?
No, I
Okay.
would just get
Well, give
myself in
us
trouble.
a follow. We have our every other Wednesday night chats on Twitter. You can find them by following me. I am at author Jess Payne.
And I am at Sarah Reed, author.
We are also doing I'm not sure when this will be up, so it might be happening by the time this gets up. We are going to do a NaNoWriMo group on Twitter. Feel free to message me for details. And we're hopefully going to be doing some more writing sprints. We did a fantastic one last night. We had like 15 people.
That was
All
super
right.
fun.
It was fun. That is everything for now. We will see you next time. Bye.